A cold rain fell over the nearly empty hospital parking lot as exhausted night shift nurse Emily Carter walked toward her old blue sedan, her scrubs stained from 12 relentless hours spent saving strangers. The silence shattered when three young men stepped from the shadows, surrounding her beneath the flickering streetlight. Their faces carried the confidence of people who believed they had chosen an easy target. They saw only a tired nurse carrying a worn backpack and a lunch container. They had no idea that years before Emily had been trained by a retired military survival instructor who believed that compassion and courage should always exist together. What they thought would be a helpless victim was about to become the greatest mistake of their lives. Before we continue, if you believe kindness is stronger than cruelty and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who loves inspiring stories, and subscribe to Moments Hub for more unforgettable emotional journeys. Emily had never imagined her life would become extraordinary. She grew up in a quiet farming town where her father, Daniel Carter, had served as a military medic before returning home to teach emergency response and self-defense to local volunteers. His lessons were never about fighting. They were about protecting life, staying calm under pressure, and never allowing fear to make decisions. He often reminded Emily that strength without compassion was dangerous, but compassion without strength could leave innocent people defenseless. Those lessons stayed with her long after his passing, becoming part of the nurse she eventually became. Working in the city's busiest emergency department was emotionally exhausting. Every shift brought heartbreaking accidents, frightened families, lonely elderly patients, and children whose tears reminded her how fragile life truly was. Emily rarely thought about herself. She skipped meals to comfort grieving relatives, stayed late to help overwhelmed co-workers, and quietly paid for medications when struggling patients could not afford them. Few people noticed these acts of kindness because she never wanted recognition. She simply believed that healing required both medicine and humanity. The hospital staff admired Emily's calmness. During emergencies, while others panicked, she moved with remarkable focus. She could comfort a terrified child while coordinating life-saving treatment. She could reassure anxious parents even when her own heart raced. Her composure came from years of disciplined training that nobody at work knew much about. Whenever co-workers asked why she remained so calm during chaos, she simply smiled and said experience had taught her to breathe before reacting. That rainy evening had already been emotionally draining. Emily had spent her final hour comforting an elderly veteran who had no surviving family. She held his hand until he peacefully slipped away, refusing to let him spend his last moments alone. Leaving the hospital, her mind replayed his stories about courage, sacrifice, and never abandoning people who needed help. She carried those memories with her as she crossed the parking lot. The three young men blocking her path expected fear. Instead, Emily carefully observed everything around her. She noticed the distance to the security entrance, the puddles beneath their feet, the nearby emergency call box, and the nervous hesitation in the youngest man's eyes. She understood that confidence often disappeared when people realized their victim refused to surrender to panic. As the situation became more threatening, Emily relied on the habits her father had drilled into her since childhood. She stayed balanced, protected her personal space, and looked for opportunities rather than obstacles. When one of the men lunged carelessly, Emily reacted with precise defensive movements designed only to create distance, not cause unnecessary harm. The sudden confidence she displayed completely shattered their expectations. Within moments, confusion replaced their arrogance as she safely maneuvered toward the brightly lit hospital entrance while activating the emergency alarm attached to her keychain. The piercing sound echoed across the parking lot. Hospital security officers rushed outside while several off-duty employees followed the noise. Startled by the growing crowd and realizing their plan had completely failed, the group attempted to flee. Security cameras captured everything. Police officers arrived quickly and located the young men only a short distance away. The following morning, the story spread throughout the hospital. Many staff members were shocked to discover that the quiet nurse everyone admired possessed years of advanced defensive training. Reporters briefly covered the incident, praising Emily's courage, but she repeatedly declined interviews. She insisted that security officers deserved the credit for responding so quickly and reminded everyone that violence should always be the last option. Her humility impressed people even more than her bravery. Several days later, something unexpected happened. Detectives informed Emily that the youngest member of the group had asked to meet her through a supervised restorative justice program. He had recently lost his father, dropped out of school, and slowly become involved with older troublemakers who promised him belonging. Watching Emily refuse revenge while speaking only about accountability and better choices had deeply affected him. For the first time in years, he admitted he wanted a different future. Emily agreed to participate because she believed healing extended beyond hospital walls. She shared stories about patients whose lives changed after someone believed in them when nobody else would. She explained that every decision, good or bad, shaped the person someone became tomorrow. Her words carried more weight than anger ever could. They reminded the young man that one terrible choice did not have to define the rest of his life. Months passed, and remarkable changes slowly unfolded. The young man enrolled in a vocational program while completing community service. Inspired by Emily's example, he volunteered at a local food pantry and eventually trained as an emergency medical technician. The detectives later told Emily that his transformation influenced two of his former friends to leave criminal activity as well. None of them forgot the rainy night when the woman they thought was powerless responded not with hatred, but with courage and mercy. Emily continued working at the emergency department, never expecting praise. She still comforted frightened children, reassured worried families, and stayed beside patients who had no one else. Yet something about her story quietly inspired the entire hospital. Security procedures improved. Self-defense awareness classes became available for healthcare workers. Local volunteers organized programs to support at-risk teenagers before they became trapped in destructive environments. One person's courage created ripples that reached far beyond a single frightening evening. Years later, a photograph hung inside the hospital's employee hallway. It showed Emily standing beside a group of newly certified emergency responders. Among them stood the same young man whose life had nearly been destroyed by one terrible decision. He often told new trainees that the greatest lesson he ever learned did not come from punishment. It came from meeting someone strong enough to protect herself while still believing another human being could change. The true hero of that rainy night was never defined by physical strength. Emily's greatest victory was refusing to let fear become hatred. She proved that courage could stop violence, but compassion could transform lives. Her father's lessons lived on through every patient she comforted, every frightened stranger she encouraged, and every lost soul she reminded that redemption remained possible. If this story has touched your heart so far, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Moments Hub so more people can discover stories that restore hope and remind us that kindness still changes lives. Before the ending, tell us in the comments, if you had been in Emily's place, would you have chosen forgiveness after finding safety, or would you have walked away forever? The rain eventually became just another memory, but the lessons from that night continued to echo through countless lives. Some victories are measured not by the battles we win, but by the hearts we refuse to give up on. Emily's courage protected her, her compassion transformed others, and her quiet strength became proof that even in the darkest moments, one brave act can inspire hope for generations to come.